What's up guys, it's Nick here, and today I'm out here doing like a little vlog style talking about knowing the limits of your camera so you can take the best quality videos and pictures with your camera. So I'm actually all alone, it's just me. Without any further ado, let's get into it. You all might recognize this area from when me and Will shot that one sunrise sequence up here. So when I talk about knowing the limits of your camera, we talk about zoom capabilities, low light capabilities, and just general capabilities of the lens on your camera. So basically, if I were to get out my phone camera and try to take a picture of the nice hillside, at first, it's really extremely zoomed out. But if I try to zoom all the way in, still not the best job to take a picture. I'm very limited by this digital zoom here. Picture is extremely grainy. I'll flash it up on screen. Extremely grainy. The dynamic range is not the best. You guys can see that hill is extremely blown out. And you can't even really see too much detail. And the digital zoom of the phone is actually a limitation of the image sensor because it's not the best sensor. It's pretty small. Doesn't have the best image processor. So after you take the image, it already isn't the best image. And when you try to digitally zoom it, which is basically just cropping the image, then you can see it really blows up them pixels, make the image just not look the best. There's also a huge limitation of smartphones, the dynamic range. Now obviously dynamic range is extremely important. That's why huge, gigantic cinema cameras like the Red Weapon or things like that are so expensive, because they have extremely high stops dynamic range. And the dynamic range of a phone isn't the best, and you can't really get a log profile on it, so you can't improve that dynamic range. For example, if I were to decolor this footage, you can see it's really flat. That's because I'm shooting in a flat profile, so I can get the most dynamic range out of my camera. I've actually made a whole video dedicated to how to improve the dynamic range of your camera, which I'll link at the end card and end of the video. And here's the other thing about testing your camera to its fullest potential. Use it in low light situations. For example, right now, I'm at ISO 3200, and as you can see, the image isn't the best, so this camera that I'm using now, I definitely would not recommend using for low light things. But when you have any new camera, definitely test it in low light conditions. Test under harsh lighting conditions like bright midday or really late at nighttime when it starts to get really dark out, so you can actually really see the capabilities of it. And if you buy a new lens for your camera and you buy a really fast lens, go out at night and see how well it actually performs in them low light conditions. So now I'm gonna go to the studio and talk about why knowing the limits of your camera is important. Let's do it. So when knowing the limits of your camera, it's kind of like an ongoing process in learning to get the best image quality out of your camera. And when you learn the limits of it, you can kind of know what settings really work. You can just kind of use your camera all around just a lot faster in the end. For example, if you really want a specific shot, say in a dark alleyway, but you know your camera really isn't the best in low light, then you know when you go out to shoot that, you need to bring in a little extra lights to kind of light the scene a little bit better so your camera will perform better, so you can get the best, as I said, image out of your camera. Or if your camera doesn't have the best zoom, but you really want to take a nice picture of something, it's kind of far away, you either have to move closer or you just can't take a picture of that because you're so far away. And you can try cropping in, but cropping is the exact same thing as just using digital zoom. Also, it's very important to know the limits so you can set your expectations of the camera. If you have a new camera, you have a ton of expectations already in your head, then chances are you're gonna be let down because you never actually used that camera, so you don't know how well it performs in different scenarios. And when you shoot more and more with the camera, you learn to have certain expectations and certain things like, oh, my camera's not the best at this, but it really excels in this category. And kind of going on with the image quality of the camera, kind of getting the best quality out of it. This way you know what your camera can and can't do, so if a specific job that you're about to take requires you to shoot a lot in low light, but you know your camera isn't the best, then that might affect what type of jobs you take in the field. And the same thing, if you're shooting like a National Geographic pictures for them, but you don't have the best zoom lens, or your camera just can't zoom the best, then that's going to be a job you have to deny or have to try to maybe invest in new glass. And another thing I kind of talked about in the video is knowing the limits of a specific codec that your camera shoots in. For example, I'm just shooting in classic H.264 footage right out of the Canon SX60HS, so there's no really flexibility I could have in post. You know, I could shoot in a flat profile to give me the most dynamic range and give me the most flexibility in post-production. And it's the closest thing that I can get to shooting raw video per se. But when shooting in raw video, you have so much more information just to work with. So, say for example, if I'm shooting outside and I blow out the sky, I can try to kind of bring that back in post-production if I shot raw. Or if I underexpose a shot, I can try to kind of boost them shadows just a little bit and not lose any quality because it's raw. So I made a whole video talking about how to improve dynamic range with the photo side. But, so in a nutshell, what I like to do is I like to expose for the sky, so the subject's a little darker, then boost the shadows in post. And that's pretty much it. That's how you can get the best image quality out of your camera, and also why it's kind of important to know the limits of your camera. But thank you for watching. Make sure to like and subscribe if you are new. Comment down below what camera you shoot on, whether you shoot photos or videos. I will see you guys in the next video. Peace out.